Hi, I'm Ari Aster, and I'm back in the closet, this time to talk about films that have been on my mind because I'm releasing a new film, EDDINGTON, and these are movies that belong in different traditions that, EDDINGTON could be seen as being a part of. Maybe, I hope. Winchester 73, the first film that Anthony Mann made with James Stewart. Maybe like an unconscious adaptation of The Forged Coupon by Tolstoy, where you follow a coupon from one character to another. This has Rock Hudson as a Native American tribal leader, which some characters in EDDINGTON would not appreciate. Parallax View, one of the three Pakula masterpieces from the 70s, one of my favorite conspiracy thrillers. This has one of the best sequences ever, which is the brainwashing, subliminal messaging video. Just incredible editing, and funny, and scary, and a great ending. Le Comme Lucien, one of the great films by the great Louis Malle, about a young man who wants to join the resistance against the Nazis, but when the resistance doesn't take him, he decides to become a Nazi. And I mean, Nazis are back in the mainstream, so it's worth a watch. Revanche, Austrian film with a French title by Goetz Spielmann. I don't hear it being talked about nearly enough. It's one of the most beautiful films. The composition, like every shot, is just gorgeous, and it's a great film about isolated people and coincidence, and it's beautiful. I love it. I really love it. Peckinpah is a filmmaker that's always on my mind, but especially with EDDINGTON, and Straw Dogs is a perfect film. One of the great films about, just how awful it is to be a person living with other people. And it's also just one of the tightest films ever made. It begins in a fraught place, and just that it's a snare that just tightens and tightens and tightens until the climax, which is just one of the greatest in all of movies. Ace in the Hole by Billy Wilder, the first truly reviled movie that he ever released. And it's a really misanthropic comedy that is genuinely upsetting, genuinely funny, honest in its anger, in a way that a lot of films made in America in the 50s weren't allowed to be. And it lands its point without compromising. It's a great film. Here's another reviled film, A Face in the Crowd. This is one of the great political satires with one of the great villains, Lonesome Rhodes, played by Andy Griffith. If I could have cast Andy Griffith in EDDINGTON, I would have. Also, the way that he's brought down in this movie is the same way that the Penguin is brought down in Batman Returns. Wanda by Barbara Loden. I know this movie has received its due reappraisal, but not enough people talk about how funny it is. The character of Mr. Dennis, played by Michael Higgins, is right up there with Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet. No junk. He's talking about pickles. It also has one of the great final freeze frames, which involves a hot dog. Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee, one of the most seminal texts on race in America. Playful, funny, inventive, sad, scary. It's a huge film, and for anybody who attempts to talk about race in America, this is always there. Graduation, one of the great films by the great Christian Manju, about a middle-aged white guy living in a quasi-rural area who is trapped in a maze of crises of his own making. Just going to mention The Grifters because you cannot make a crime film without thinking about Jim Thompson. This is a great film. You guys also put out Coup de Torchon, which is Tavernier's adaptation of Pop 1280. This is great. You Can Count on Me, Kenneth Lonergan, one of the great small town movies, one of the great films about siblings. Nobody writes dialogue, nobody writes people as well as he does, and that includes his plays. Margaret should end up in here as well. The Wages of Fear, a great slow burn where the movie takes its time, introducing you to its characters, setting up the environment, setting up the dynamics, so that when the action hits, it is very affecting and frightening and upsetting Yeah, this is a masterpiece. Lone Star by John Sayles. Great film about all these cultural identities, like having to like kind of cohabitate and live together, and about American history. It's investigating American history. Just a really sensitive, smart American epic. Last Picture Show by Peter Bogdanovich, based on the great book by Larry McMurtry. Really like specifically observed and very funny, and it's a film that I come back to a lot. I find it very comforting. It also has such like a wonderful texture. Bogdanovich made some great films, but this to me is the greatest. But that brings me to another Bogdanovich film, Targets. Once you've seen Eddington, you will understand where these are connected. Maybe the best film made under Roger Corman. Bogdanovich also acts in the movie, and it's not his best performance. That would be The Sopranos. Young Mr. Lincoln, My Darling Clementine, two of my favorite John Ford films, two of his most romantic films, films about the heroic myth of America, the dream of America, and it's very sad that they're not true. Hopefully they will come to pass. No Country for Old Men, Coen Brothers. Anybody making a contemporary Western has to contend with this one. We all know it's perfect. I have nothing to add. Well, it's always nice to be back in here. Thank you for letting me in. Hopefully you'll have me again. Thank you.